Aloha golfers! Welcome to Golf in the Cosmos, episode number 45. I'm Kevin Robowski, and here we talk all things McElgrady and MORAD. So today's special video comes from Gary Cosell. This is home footage, 1988, Castle Pines, PGA Tour event, the International in Colorado. So Mac is playing a practice round here with Gary Hallberg. Again, so much fun watching these videos of Mac in the 80s, watching the swing, watching the manner in which he does a practice round, his undying teaching of other players, which is really incredible. So, you know, Mac spending less time on himself and really trying to help other tour pros improve their swings. So, very fascinating to watch this. Before we get into the video and talking a little bit more about these points, a big congratulations goes out to Allison Corpus. Allison is from Hawaii. She was here at the KMR School of Golf, and she was 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Allison and I went to Erin Hills for the USGA Women's Public Links, where she was the youngest ever to qualify for a USGA event. And her special talent has, not surprisingly, got her to the top of the women's game. So very much well-deserved, Allison. And of course, our little influence on her and even Mac's influence on her doesn't go unnoticed. Certainly her swing is very efficient, very repeatable, and this was all about creating that with these MORAD concepts, especially in the early versions. So definitely you can see the influence on Allison for sure. Tempo, positioning, and follow through in perfect balance. And she plays a very controlled, consistent game. Perfect for major championships. I would highly anticipate she's going to go on a roll now. Always had a great chipping game, putting game, so you know it's going to be fun to watch in the future. This particular video emphasizes a few points that I want to sort of elaborate on. So I guess the first thing, number one, is you know, people that sometimes get frustrated with the MORAD swing, especially the later versions can get a little complicated. Earlier versions, much simpler. It's not a complicated system at all. In fact, if you just look at the very big broad strokes, so we just say, what is the general feel of the early MORAD swing? And Mac demonstrates it here. He demonstrates it in some other early videos too. He simply bends his elbows, puts his arms on his rib cage, right? And then his basic rotation, rotation. Staying centered. Take a look on some different angles. Keeping the arms close to the body. And then there's a hinging of the wrists and a rehinging of the wrists. Swing stays in a tight circle. You feel the centeredness, and you feel the connectivity and the release. These things are paramount to the MORAD swing, right? So what could be simpler than this movement? Right? Staying in your tilts, right? So that's the big broad strokes. Of course, you know, we're doing it with a golf club and we're doing it with a golf ball. I would say probably the biggest reason people cannot fulfill the original MORAD swing, and this is going to be a very good example of this video, is people's reluctance to stand this close to the golf ball. So I would say Mac and probably Jim Furyk stood as close to the golf ball as anybody in the history of the game. I would throw in probably early 2000 Rod Pampling, another one from Australia, and Rod's influence from his teacher, and that also that group of Australian players, which includes Stuart Appleby and also Robert Allenby. You know, they have an instructor from Australia with a cowboy hat. I can't remember his name, but he was very much influenced by Mac. And so you'll see Rod Pampling had incredible MORAD influence. And he stood very close to the ball. So Mac's hands almost are in between his thighs. And again, it also creates that low hand position. So when you stand that close to the ball, you're going to have those arms very connected, and the shaft is going to work more on a vertical angle, right? And so as you get further away, you see the shaft start to rotate and get flatter and more laid off. And then as you get very close to the ball, that shaft's going to come up a little more vertical, come back down to get the wrist hinge. And you'll see Furyk very vertical. The difference between Mac and Furyk obviously is Furyk doesn't really turn his body in the backswing. He just more or less lifts his arms, club gets vertical, and then he reroutes it in the downswing. So Mac's hands very close. Mac's club's getting more vertical, working kind of on this like elliptical arc, and but he's also rotating his body at the same time. So he's getting the full 90-degree shoulder turn, as well as the connection, arms close to the body, which is going to be created by standing very close to the ball, and a little bit more vertical shaft alignment. So you'll see it very clearly demonstrated with Mac and his iron shots in particular. Club doesn't cross the line because at some point, even though the shaft's getting more vertical, the right elbow stops, and then the wrist will continue to hinge, right? Create more of a down the line look, right? So if the elbow flew out, the shaft would cross at the top a lot. So that doesn't happen in Mac's look. A little bit with the driver, you'll see that because he's turning more than 90 degrees. So the shaft will look a little crossing, but irons look just dead on perfect. So when Mac stands that close to the ball, and even in this kind of demonstration right here, the forearm rotation is completely eliminated, right? So in Mac will also say this, he said this in other videos, the secret to this swing is to eliminate forearm rotation, right? So this was a very common theme. This is again back in the 80s. So you will not see Mac in the 90s or in the 2000s doing this move with the elbows and the arms on the body, and not mention the elimination of forearm rotation, because Mac's trying to get the shaft more in line with the shaft plane, right? The original shaft plane at address, and less on the vertical plane. So this is some of the differences that evolved over time. But I personally like the original idea, and gosh, even for myself, I have to push myself to stand closer to the ball. Now driver is a little bit of an exception to that, but with the irons, I mean, I want you to get right on top of that sucker. Just give it a try. I mean, you'll never feel more connected than when you're close to the ball. So I would say that's a major kind of a point that people miss when they're trying to do this system. So the rest of it can kind of fall into place. The address more or less is the blueprint of the swing. So we have the standing closer to the ball. We have the elimination of the forearms, forearm rotation. And Mac makes another interesting little point here, is mentioning how little the left knee moves in the backswing. So you're looking at, 1988 still, there's a generation that lifted the heel and the knee comes way in. Of course, the backswing can get very long, the shoulders can over-rotate, and you can get some head movement. If you practice enough, you might be able to time it back to some degree, but gosh, can you do it every time under pressure in all situations? Seems like that's a very hard task for the brain, right? So Mac mentions that the most his knee moves is 4 inches. 4 inches is not very much. Now you need flexibility, right? So even for me, if I move my knee only 4 inches, I'm about there. right? And so sometimes the length of the torso is important, but so there's a little bit of wiggle room. You still want to turn your back 90 degrees, so that left knee will sort of release that to some degree. But what I found is if you're going to be more consistent, especially hit it a little bit on a lower ball flight on windy days, try to lessen the left knee movement. That is an easy way to hit a low, straight, consistent shot. Of course, it's not going to go as far, and you probably don't want to do it unless it is windy. But this is, again, another point. You can watch Allison, who just won yesterday at the U.S. Women's Open. Very little left knee movement, 3/4 backswing, extremely consistent. And so these are elements that we try to teach all of the junior students so that they have a more consistent swing. So 3 very interesting points Mac demonstrated in this video that I found sort of the most illuminating. And of course, just watching Mac hit it and his interaction. Kenny Perry is also in the group at some point, although he's not swinging. And gosh, just a real joy to watch these home videos. So if you have any that you'd like to send me and would like to promote on this channel, please let me know. And of course, like these, subscribe. I know so many of you are watching these videos and kind of doing it in secret. So.
Mac, you tell me if this bothers you, okay?
What?
You tell me if this bothers you.
Only if you're going to sell the tape to the commissioner.
No way, Jose.
Yeah. So if you bend your left knee, you're going to have to make the compensation somewhere when you're ready. Yeah. Well, I think it was 60. 5 iron?
7.
Oh,
I think I am.
you made me laugh. I remember we played, where was it, at Bay Hill? A couple of holes. I forget what one of the holes. I said, yeah, Gary, what'd you hit there? 5 iron? No, I hit 8. There you go.
Ball.
I hit the back edge. Hey, one more. I don't know this side that well.
This hole plays real short going down there.
Put away. That 8? Gary, when you hit bunker shots, okay? And I'm not going to tell you anything about short game because I mean you really know what the hell you're doing, but like Seve, that you watch him get in here like this, and the left leg, where the center of gravity is in the middle, is shifted to the left, then the left leg always stays back. Always like this. It never shifts this way. This is all bunker shots, right? Those chip shots around the green, where this goes here. If you watch all the great bunker players, every one of the left leg's weight always stays left. The center of gravity never shifts. Never. You have this shot coming out of the rough.
Get a sandwich, Pepper.
Right here, let's say downhill line. Same system right here where your weight will go left. Stays there the whole time.
Get a sandwich.
This way you can always control the radius of the club head as it ascends up and it comes down. If you go like this, shift it back and forth, then the central nervous system has to make adjustments.
I've always hit my best shot.
It's a piece of cake. What?
I've always hit my best shot when I was
Right.
It's almost, I feel like I'm in a ready position.
Yeah. All you're doing is your weight, you're normally a center, now it shifts over to the left side and just stays
You're
there.
like a player, you know. Just stay here.
And there's also, if you want to hit a low bunker shot, you take it up higher and come down. If you want to hit it a little more higher, it comes back a little more higher up.
Just stay right there.
Whole time.
That's what I do.
What?
I sometimes get that too.
No, see, that's not a ball. Check this out, watch this. I'm going to hit this ball over here. This guy's up here yet?
Yeah.
Oh, they are there. One more thing, watch this. Weight is left. Just on the frame. Keep it down there. Don't fly good.
Lined up thing. Lined up that way.
The ball down here too. Come on.
I'm watching the left shoulder go.
What?
Shoulder just go here and here.
That's it. And you go ahead and watch. Stand over on this side over here. Go ahead and look at my left knee. See how little the left knee moves. The left knee is only moving about four or so inches. See how little it moves? the ball? You have one more.
Trying to pull it right back.
Action's good. Direction's very quiet. Pretty close. Done. Gary, when I'm playing, the only thing I'm aware of is, again, rotate and understand it. The second half, supposed to go, and rotate and stay put. Here.
I feel like you're fading.
I know, definitely. That's why I fade for it.
I feel like I'm in fade.
Yeah. Yep.
But actually, it's a pretty straight shot.
And what it does, it shuts down. If you have the second field like this, then the form won't turn over so much. If you come up this way, the whole form should go over. You don't want to do that. You want to shut your forearms off. Yeah, that's one of the secrets of the golf swing was that you have to start to get rid of the forearm rotation. When you come to impact like this, and all the rest of it is impact come up. Okay. Not try to go like this. Ever. Remember the force is a little bit. This is why. Look at when the left hand's turned over like this. It should take. Now look at my forearm. If I go from section 1 to 2, the forearm moves very little. If I have a flat, now look how much you rotate. Okay. And you just come to and recocks again. Okay? I can aim this left and then hit a nice little fade and then recock my wrist. Except impact like this and I have no form rotation.
I think one of the
Cannot go this way.
Pepper, throw me a ball. If I have a wind shot like this, I gotta knock the ball down. I'll put my weight a little bit more left and go like this.
your body.
Yeah.
You can hit these nice little baby little cut fades. And it's just all day. It's just going like this. Keep your eye. Just retract your wrist and keep your upper arms close to the body. Have it pivot there. Elbow top, your wrist talking your elbow top.
Look at my divot. Usually I'm here.
Oh, really?
Usually my toe is in a real square divot.